Alright, in this video, let's create a low poly Vikings helmet, kind of a traditional basic helmet. So to get started, let's jump in our top view, and I'm just pressing spacebar to navigate between my viewports. I'm going to begin with the box. First, I'm going to create a box, and under mesh, I'm going to say smooth, and I'm going to leave my divisions on 1. Alright. Click to get out of the settings and kind of commit to my changes. And you know what else? I'm going to turn on my wireframe unshaded just so I could see the topology. And let's go ahead and scale this down. Now I'm going to be using my grid, which is currently set to centimeters, and kind of use it to lay out the helmet. Alright, so the scale doesn't really matter because we can change the scale at any time, but I am going to use my grid to kind of evenly align all the pieces. Pressing spacebar, I'm going to head over to my side view. Let's right click and go to face, and I'm just going to select all the bottom pieces and press delete. Alright, I'm going to head over back to my top view, go to object mode, right clicking on my object and just saying object mode, kind of gets me out of the edit mode, right? Then I'm going to move my object holding down the X key. I can actually snap it to the middle of the grid. And I'm kind of looking at this box here, so 4 of them together, right? And let's just go ahead and scale this about something like that, right? And make sure it's centered. Now I'm going to press Control D or Command D and drag another one holding down the X key to the next box. So kind of the next 4. And let's go ahead and make maybe 12 of these. So again, I'm going to press Command D, hold down the X key and just drag. And let's keep repeating this until we have about 12 of these. And this is going to be kind of the side part of our helmet. 10, I need 2 more. Alright, so now I have 12 of them. Alright, next let's grab our box. And in my case, I actually have under Create and Polygon Primitives, my Interactive Creation checkbox is on, so I can manually drag interactively the shape of the box I want. So if I select my box, I can actually click and drag. And all I'm trying to do is just create kind of the background for these guys, using the grid once again as my reference. Then release once and drag up to create kind of the thickness. Once you're done, you can press spacebar and go in like your perspective view and just kind of check it out, make sure everything looks okay. We can certainly take this and move it up. Alright, and let's go ahead and turn on wireframe unshaded so we could see what do we have so far. I'm going to go back to my top view, and while my box is selected, I'm going to go to my attribute editor and press Control A if you don't see it, or you can actually click on these buttons up here to make sure you see your attribute editor. And I'm going to head over to my polycube. Alright, for my width, I'm actually going to drag this out until I sort of see a line between each circle. So in my case, 12 is the right number. Alright. Now let's go back into our perspective view and just kind of check it out. I think it looks really nice. Now make sure that this part is actually inside these guys, right? So it's actually, there's no spaces. Once you're done, let's go ahead and select all of these and press on this button here to combine our mesh into one. Once that happens, let's go to modify and do center pivot. Alright, Now if we press our move tool, we can see that our center pivot is right in the middle, which is perfect. If we wanted to at any point adjust the pivot, let's go into this view. We could press down the D key and just move it down. I'm actually going to move my down right to the bottom of our object. Alright, something like that. And now let's go ahead and curve this into a circle, or bend it, using our deform nonlinear bend tool. But before we do that, I actually would like to go to my top view, select my object, press Command D to duplicate it, and let's just move this, leave this piece alone, just kind of down here. Now for this piece, I'm actually going to grab my rotate tool and hold down the J key. I'm just going to snap this evenly 90 degrees, something like that. Then go to my deform nonlinear bend, just click bend. As you can see, this line appears. What I'm going to do next is hold down the J key and just kind of snap this line along. And let's press spacebar and kind of take a closer look. Another thing I can do is I can actually move the line, and I'm going to move it right to the edge of my shape here, right to the bottom part on the line. And we can press the X-ray mode if we want to see where that actually is. So something like that. Alright, this is the X-ray button. Now let's head over to our attribute editor in our bend tab. Let's go ahead and change the curvature all the way until they meet. Something like that. Alright. Once we've done that, we no longer need these lines. So let's go ahead and go to Edit, Delete by Type, and Delete History. Now to do that, I have to right click and go to Object Mode. Then go to Edit, Delete by Type, History. Alright. Let's hop in our perspective view and kind of take a look. So we have a good beginning for our Viking helmet here. Next, let's kind of put this part on top, maybe like a little half a circle shape. So to do that, I'm just going to be in this view, and I'm just going to go to Deform and click Bend. Now let's hop over to our front view, and holding down the J key, again I'm going to make sure my line is actually horizontal to my shape, and using the move tool I can also move it in shape. Again, use the X-ray if you need to see it a little better. Let's go ahead and bend it again, this time on positive, and I'm gonna go to exactly 90 degrees. Once you're done, let's go to Object Mode, select our shape, and do a delete by type once again. Next, I'm going to hop to my top view. Holding down the X key, I'm just going to put my shape right in the center of the grid, and let's do the same thing with this guy. Holding down the X key, let's put both of these shapes in the middle of the grid. Alright, next let's grab this shape here and move it up. Grab our scale tool and just scale it down. Then let's place it into position. If we wanted to, we can go to our perspective view, size it a little better. Okay, one of the things you notice is that at this point I'm kind of on the corner edge of my bottom piece here. So if I wanted to, I could actually go into my top view and just simply rotate. So maybe it will fit a little better. So just grabbing my rotate tool, and I can simply press E, or I can click on the button. I'm going to center my pivot And let's just rotate this where it's aligned a little better, right? So now if I hold down the X key, I can actually snap it to the middle and go back to my perspective view. And as you can see now, this top piece can actually be fitting into this bottom piece a lot better, right? So now all we need to do is just scale it just a little bit. Make sure nothing is kind of poking out. And I think that looks really nice. Can always turn on our X-ray and see how far down it goes. Maybe we can move it up a little. Turn off my X-ray. All right, so this is looking really nice. Next, let's create the middle part, the actual helmet itself. So to do that, I'm actually gonna just grab my box, just drag my box out, go to Mesh, Smooth, and this time I'm gonna set my divisions to 2. All right, let's hop into our side view, go to Faces, and just select this whole bottom half and just press Delete key. Now I'm just gonna select all of my faces, and we can take a closer look and just press the extrude button right here. Once you do that, you can just drag out your extrusion. Make sure your polys are not inverted, so they're not black. You want to make sure they stay gray. So decide on the thickness of your helmet. In my case, I think something like that should work. Okay. Go to Object Mode to exit the Edit mode. And now let's hop on our top view like we've been doing and just holding down the X key center this piece as well. All right, go to Perspective View and maybe scale it up a little. In our top view, we can turn on our X-ray and also note that the round shape is actually has corners here, right? So let's do the same thing with this shape as well. I'm actually going to go to Object Mode and just rotate it just a little bit. So maybe it fits a little better. All right. Turn off my X-ray. Jump back into my perspective view. Let's see if we can just scale it a little more. I'm just going to scale it until it kind of hits the top. And I'm not too concerned about this part down here. Just scale it until it kind of hits the top but doesn't penetrate the top. So you could see that the wireframes are kind of coming through. Let's just kind of meet it right at the end. And I know there's spaces. We'll take care of that in a minute. All right, so now something like this should work. Next, let's just manually actually adjust our points. So to do that, I'm going to hop into my front view, kind of zoom in. All right, and let's go ahead and turn on our X-ray. Right click and go to Vertex. And from here, I'm just going to grab my Move tool and grab all of these points down here and just move them down. Grab my scale and just scale them out. And as I'm scaling, you can see them from the top view as well. So I think something like that should work. Now let's take a closer look and maybe grab some of these side points and just move them into position a little better. Now at this point, we also could see that it would be nice if we had some points here to kind of align the shape with this as well. Since we don't have any geometry there, let's create some, right? So I'm going to go to Object Mode, and while this is selected, I'm going to go to Mesh Tools and click on Insert Edge Loop. So let's go to Options, and I'm going to make sure that relative distance from the edge is on, this top one. And just simply click on one of these outer edges here. Once you do that, you could see that it created this edge. If yours didn't pop out like that, like mine, that just means your edge flow wasn't checked, which is fine because we can manually adjust it anyways. So now I'm going to go back to my move, go to vertex, and this time let's just adjust these points a little better as well. Alright, so from the front view it looks pretty fantastic. Let's check it out from the side view. From the side view, let's do the same thing. We'll turn on the X-ray and just kind of check it out. Alright, it's looking pretty good as well. Top view looks good. Let's see from the perspective view and make sure there's no weird spaces or holes anywhere. If you still see some spaces, for example on the top, because this is a low poly, we don't really have a lot of geometry, right? Right now we only have 512 polygons. So some of the stuff might be blocky and you might be seeing some of these spaces like I have on my end. That's really easy to fix. All you need to do is just go back into the front view and just actually select this top shape and make sure your X-ray is on. Let's just select all of the bottom points. I'm just holding down the shift key and just selecting all of these points all the way around. Something like that. Now if I grab my scale tool, I can actually scale them all down, kind of creating a lot more thickness. And if we wanted to, we can even take these points and just move them a little more even as well. Now by creating this thickness here, right, if we go back into our perspective view, you could see you no longer have that space, which works out beautifully. If you look inside the helmet, because we had a lot of thickness here, right, let me turn off my grid for a second. For a second, you could see that there was no penetration of any kind. If you wanted to, if you did not have enough thickness and you see some of that detail kind of poking through, you can always go to your face mode and select all of these faces. Just like this. And manually adjust the thickness to make sure nothing is poking through by just simply scaling this down. So you can just scale it down and give it more thickness. I don't need to do that. I just wanted to show you that. Alright. So next let's create our horns for our helmet. To create our horns, I'm just simply going to go back to my perspective view. Let's turn our grid back on. And let's grab like this guy here, the polygon cone. Holding down the shift, I'm just going to create my cone. Now in my attribute editor, I'm going to go to polycone and maybe dial this down to like 10. Kind of keeping it low poly, but at the same time enough geometry to give it that roundness that I'm looking for. And let's go ahead and scale our horn. Maybe it should be a little larger, something like that. You can scale it down and make it longer. Okay, something like that should work. Let's go ahead and move this up. Pretty happy with that. And now common sense, for us to bend this into a horn shape, right, we obviously need more geometry in the middle. So to do that, let's add some height. Alright, so I'm going to give it maybe 6. I don't want to create too much geometry, but I need enough to kind of create a nice even bend. So 6 subdivisions make sense to me. Alright. And before we bend this horn and attach it to the helmet, it would be nice if the horn also had a little base. So we can simply create a base by using the polygon cylinder, or we can just simply extrude the base right out of the cone here. So either way would work. So let's go to our face mode and just select the bottom polygon there. Let's click on our extrude tool and just kind of pull this down, something like that. Now I'm going to right click and go to face mode and just double click to select all the polygons all the way around. And let's press extrude. And on the Z here, I'm just going to pull them out. Just creating like a nice little base for our horn. Now keep in mind, none of these polygons are going to be seen, so technically if we wanted to, we could just delete them all. We don't really need them. Alright, now I'm going to go to object mode. And let's go ahead and create a bend. Just like we've done before, I'm going to go to deform, nonlinear, and press bend. And let's go ahead and go to bend and add our curvature. Now as you can see, it's not easy to see in this view, so maybe it would be better if we hopped in our front view. And let's go ahead and actually move this. I'm going to select all of these and just move them aside, just so I can kind of see a little better. And the cool thing about creating the bend, you can see it's also kind of tapering the base here, which creates a nice little effect that I actually didn't plan for, but I'm actually really liking it. So decide the angle of your horn. I think something like this should work for me. I'm gonna go to my object mode, and now I'm done bending this, so I'm actually gonna go to edit, delete by type, delete the history. Okay, so now I sort of committed the change, and now this is a final shape. Now let's go ahead and jump back into our top view, and let's decide what side the horn is going to actually attach to. Obviously it should not attach to where this top piece is. It needs to be on the side. So in my top view, I'm going to grab my rotate tool, and I can see that it's not currently centered, so I'm going to go to modify center pivot, and holding down the J key, I'm just going to rotate this 90 degrees. Alright, and let's move it into position a little better. From the top view, we can use our side view. And it clearly looks a little too large, so I'm actually going to scale it down. And move it into position. And just like we did with all the other pieces, let's hold down the X key and just kind of snap it to this line here on the grid. Make sure it kind of aligns with everything else that we've been doing. So now we can actually just kind of put it in position a little better. Now I'm going to press spacebar and go into my side view. And I'm really happy with the way this is looking, but obviously it's not connecting here. So I'm going to manually adjust these points. I'm going to go to vertex mode, holding down the shift key, just grab all of these points here. And I'm just going to rotate them and move them. Something like that. Go to object mode and hop in our perspective view, and let's check it out. I could still see that line is actually poking through. So grabbing the side view, the side tool, which is just going to be the X and Y, right? I can actually move this just a little bit. Alright, I'm very happy with this. I think that looks really nice. So all we need to do now is just simply clone it or mirror it to the other side. Let's go ahead and do that in our side view here. So in our side view, let's look at our X and Y and Z here. So let's click on our mirror tool. And let's set our axis to Z. Z positive. Alright. That is exactly what I want. I'm going to go to object mode and just kind of check this out. I think that's a good looking helmet, and we are at 676 polygons or 1300 tries. So it's actually a really nice low poly model. Okay, so one of the other things we could do, if I turn off the grid here, we can make this looking a little nicer by just maybe adding some thickness to the bottom piece here. If I just manually select these, because I only want sort of the inside polygons, then I can scale these in, and by adding more thickness to the bottom, I think it creates a much nicer look. I think that looks much better. So I'm very happy with this. Next, let's stop here, and in part 2 of this tutorial, we'll go ahead and unwrap this. So we'll set up our UVs and quickly texture this in Photoshop. So I'll see you guys in the next video.